Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Sorry, that is not my intro. Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this hilarious story about Stephen Colbert, who decided to call out Tudor Dixon after something she said at last week's debate. And he tried to pretend, well, he didn't try to pretend. He pretended like she was lying and she totally made up a story. Turns out it was totally real. And our local news, like the Free Press wrote about it, then Fox News picked it up and Daily Mail picked it up. Tim Pool's talking about it. A lot of people are talking about it. So he came for her, elevated, trying to make fun of her, and elevated this story, and it's a very important story, and made it a national story. So it's just really great PR. So I sincerely thank Stephen Colbert for being a moron. It's just really delicious. Also, Joe Biden made some questionable comments the other day while he was talking about election. Apparently, did another unhinged speech. I don't have much from the unhinged part of it, but I do have some snippets. He like alleged that it was like illegal to not accept the results of an election, and gosh, I know a lot of Democrats who ought to be in jail then if that's the case. So I want to focus on the reality of this narrative that the Democrats are pointing out, and also I want to complain about Disney. And I don't watch Disney. You guys know that I think they're a deeply immoral company, and I actually have not seen anything Disney for more than a year now, actually. But I heard some news last night and it upset me. I shared it, and it's not getting good feedback from people. Definitely sounds like the worst idea ever, and it's regarding the Disney Hercules film, which I really really love. So those are the things we'll be talking about today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on my website, different articles that I have. I dropped one late last night regarding Prop 3 and the whole Democrats already tried to appeal parental consent. And so Life News, the website, started following me a couple days ago on Twitter. And so they've liked some of my things and retweeted a thing or two. They actually reshared one of my pro-life videos where it talks about all the numbers of how many are killed. So I was grateful that they did that. So I shared them my article, and I said, you guys can retweet this, copy and paste it. I don't care. I just want this information out. And then they were like, oh, well, we like to give, do op-eds or whatever. So yeah, tell us your name and we'll just post it. So they just posted it. So my article, you can still go read on blacktnews.com, but it's also on Live Site. So they put it on, they shared it. They got, a bunch of retweets. So I just want the information out there. I just want the information out there because I believe it'll make a difference. So I'm glad for that. You can go to the website, check out different articles that I've written, different videos that I've made. Go ahead and share those around. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It costs to stream, it costs to run my website, it costs the travel, it costs to do all those things. So if you would like to help with that overhead, I very much appreciate it, and God bless you for that. Also, check out different merch that we have at the store. Like the I voted for Trump and all I got was historic peace deals. No new wars. There's gas under $2, tax cut. And it just ends with this lousy t-shirt. We got the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racist stuff on the back. And also we got the GOAT hoodies and GOAT t-shirts, and we do have them in different colors if you're interested in that. We got all kinds of goodies. You guys can check out the website. So go ahead and you can support that way if you would like. But I also appreciate everyone who likes, who shares, who subscribes. Thank you for watching on Facebook. I know a lot of people do. If you could also subscribe on YouTube, that would be great. I know 1,000 isn't a lot to to a lot of people. I'm pretty sure they've been like actively suppressing the account, but I'm like almost there, and that will get me like a lot more benefits. So please take a moment and go ahead and also subscribe over there if you have a YouTube account. I'd very much appreciate it. But if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, all my like basically all my links should be in the description. Facebook, YouTube, etc., TikTok. All my handles are at Black Tea News, with the exception of Twitter. That one is at True Black Tea. Tea like the cup. Black like the color, tea like the drink. Also want to thank Brian and Michigan Packham in their studio. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. I'm just using the space, and God bless them. I appreciate them very, 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 very much. I'm sorry I do not have a meme for you guys today, so I'm just gonna dive right into the story. So, which is hilarious enough, and it's wait, before I even talk about that, I just saw the Michigan Democrats tweeted out this article from MLive complaining Dixon campaign spent $5,000 on designer clothing. Which I haven't read it, but people in the comments are like, desperate, reaching. You guys must be desperate if what you can report on and complain about is a candidate buying clothes for their campaign. And it's reminiscent of back in the days when Sarah Palin was running with John McCain, and there were people who were complaining. And I don't think it was like really Democrats. I think at the time it was like, because Rush Limbaugh was talking about it. He was talking about some more highbrow, elitist kind of Republicans were talking about how they're spending money on clothes. And she's just like, she's on the campaign trail. You know, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because people talk about you if you don't like their clothes, if you wear the same thing too often, or etc. So if someone who's running a campaign goes and buys some stuff, they're like, oh, that's terrible. So yeah, it just screams of desperation. I'm gonna have to go and troll them later. I usually just like to go on the Michigan Democrat page and post repeatedly, which I think the Tudor campaign should have just be posting this every day, of when they said that the parents don't get to decide what their children do in school, and it's the society's job to decide that. And I'm like, who is the society and why isn't it the parents? So I post that all the time under their stuff when they pop in my feed. So just screams of desperation. But anyway, Stephen Colbert decided to go after Turdor Dixon, which is hilarious to me. Now, Turdor Dixon at the debate, which she totally dominated Gretchen Whitmer, the subject came up of pornography or really sexually explicit books. There were 6 different books in Dearborn. Their parents who were protesting, they wanted certain material taken out of their schools. And one of the books, I didn't look into all the other books, but one of the books is called This Book is Gay. And in that book, and you have people from the LGBT community who are upset, and one of the stuff in there who went to like the different school board meetings and tried to complain back and like, you guys are just trying to erase us or et cetera, blah, blah, blah. We need inclusion and et cetera. And everyone else is like, dude, leave our kids alone. Like, we don't want them to see your stuff. But the book, This Book is Gay, it's for ages 14 to 17. I am not going to show you the photos on here, by the way. You look it up yourself. I did do a video about it, so you guys can go look at that video. And the stuff is blurred out, but it's detailed what happened at the school. So the book, This Book is Gay, it has a section on how to argue with Muslims in there. So Dearborn, if you're not aware, has a very high population of Muslims. And in this book, it has a section on how to argue with Muslims, particularly on the subject of homosexuality, right? It also has directions on how to do sexual things, as well as different pictures, like full spread eagle looking inside of the woman, different diagrams of, like it'll point to the lips and say, like, this is how you please the lips, this is how you please the breast, this is how you please the other stuff. And it does that for men, it does that for women, it has other stuff in it. And it also has a section in there that explains how to upload photos of yourself on apps and encourages you to talk to homosexuals on the app as well. So that is what the parents were protesting in Dearborn. And maybe this is radical of me to say, but I think they had every right to do that, and every right to be upset, and every right to not want that in school libraries. It's really creepy to me when I see people defend this stuff and say, oh, well, were they assigned that book? If they just picked it up, you're just a bad parent. Or maybe bad parents are the ones who just want to allow their kids to be exposed to this stuff, or the ones who are just passive and checked out, and when they're told this stuff still don't want to do anything. That would be bad parenting. These parents are doing the right thing, saying we don't want, this isn't appropriate. And again, this book was 14 to 17. That's who it's directed toward. A book that tells your kids to upload photos of themselves on these apps so they can talk to homosexuals. So that's what's that was one of the books, and there was 6 books in question that they wanted off, and like 4 of them had to do with like LGBT themes, right? So that is something that's that is more in the section of pedophilia. So unless you want to define yourself and welcome in the map people, the pedos, that's not part of your community, and there's no reason gays, lesbians, etc., to be upset and protesting the parents of Dearborn and say, you guys are so bigoted, unless you feel like that pornographic pedophilia material is a part of your umbrella. And I don't think that's what you want. I don't think that's what you mean. So get out your feelings and just stand up with everyone else, join the Gays Against Groomers, and be like, leave the kids alone. That's all you need to do, okay? So anyway, at the debate, Turdor Dixon brought this up, and she talked specifically about a man who was running as a Democrat. And she said, because the Democrats aren't doing anything, he's no longer going to be a Democrat, and he's switching to Republican. And that was good information. It came off a tiny bit awkward, but I didn't dismiss it. Though there's absolutely no reason to assume that wasn't real or assume that wasn't true. And so, but anyway, she wanted Gretchen Whitmer to say something about. She's like, I'm looking forward to what Gretchen Whitmer has to say because parents want to hear what she has to say, and she's been silent. And Gretchen Whitmer totally sidestepped the issue. We played the video before on here, and she just tried to go, oh, I'm sick of these politicians tearing people apart and making these wedge issues. That shouldn't be a freaking wedge. That shouldn't be a freaking wedge. Everybody should be able to say, hey, it's kind of disgusting to have something like this anywhere near a child. So to say that's a wedge issue, if that's a wedge issue, I don't want to know what happens on your side of the wedge. I don't want to be near you people if that's a wedge issue and you're on that side of the wedge. I want to keep pushing you until you fall off a cliff into the ocean and get eaten by the monster dinosaur from Jurassic World. Like, that's what I want. You have no place in like leadership and being my governor. And unfortunately she is. So anyway, Turdor Dixon was like, well, you have your answer, because she didn't want to deal with it. And then that's when she had her unhinged moment. And she had they were like, governor? And she does this little fake laugh, like, do you really think books are more dangerous than guns? It was so unhinged. It was so terrible. And she probably thought in her head, like, yeah, this is going to be a great moment. And I'm sure there's people on the left who are like, yeah, that was a great moment. But parents are like, okay, groomer, how can you not stand up again? How hard would it have been to say, yeah, I'm going to look into that, and we should not have pornographic material in schools? So, or she could have tried to, like, if she wanted to pretend like they weren't real, she could have been like, name the books, Tudor, or something, and see if she even had an answer, like on the debate stage or something. Like that would have been a better way to sidestep the conversation. So anyway, Colbert, and I'm gonna take this clip and clip it out and probably have that Colbert clip in there by the time people watch this on the playback. But I don't want I don't want this to get flagged, so I'm not going to stream this live, the Colbert episode, but he did one of his monologues. And he said that she made it up. And he's like, oh, yeah, that really happened. Well, it did happen. And not only did it happen, he got called out by the father, who has switched parties. He's from Dearborn. He's a Muslim man. And there's even video from him addressing Tudor at another event. And then the Free Press decided to write about it. Now, from my observation, you have the Free Press and you have the Detroit News. The Detroit News is like, I don't think, from my observation, local news, there's some local news that's just blatantly terrible as far as how one-sided they are. I don't feel like Free Press and Detroit News, it's not like they're MSNBC or something like that, but I do feel like Detroit News is like more slanted to the right a bit, and Free Press is more like Democrat, so I love the fact that they actually wrote about this story, and I can't say that for everyone on staff or whatever. I don't know about the guy who wrote it, but this is a real story. Detroit Free Press decided to write about it. So now the Detroit Free Press is aware that this story is real. This is a real man from Dearborn who has switched parties because the Democrats refused to denounce pornographic material in schools. So now this story is blown up on the local level. This is not a small paper. It's not a small paper. It's not a blog. I love what I'm doing. Black Tea News is still small. This is not a blog. This is the Detroit News, a Free Press. And Fox News wrote about how the Free Press debunked Colbert. And Daily Mail picked it up. And Tim Pool's talking about it. So other folks are writing stories about this story. And it's now a national story, especially since a national figure like Colbert, with his not great numbers anyway, decided to dunk on Dixon. So it's a really great story. So let me read the Free Press's account. Stephen Colbert doubted existence of a man Turdor Dixon cited in a debate, but he's real. Oh, snap. A Dearborn resident whose existence was doubted by comedian Stephen Colbert during a monologue last week has a message for CBS late night host. I am real. And so is my switch to the Republican Party. Boom. On late night show, Colbert said a person described by Turdor Dixon during a debate last week with Governor Gretchen Whitmer must have been totally made up by the GOP nominee for governor. He was skeptical of her story that a Michigan man approached her complaining of an inappropriate book he found in a school library after failing to find help from Democrats, saying sarcastically, "That happened." But the man, Callie Ottman, told the Free Press he is an actual person and did attend the Dixon campaign rally she referred to. To claim that I'm not here, I don't exist, I'm not human, that's absolute ignorance, Othman said. 41, father of 5, and former Dearborn City Council candidate told the Free Press if this person did his due diligence and started researching, or has his team do a little bit of research, because Colbert does have a team, of who's this person or who attended Dixon's rally, they would be able to find my name right away, easy on social media. Just Google it. Dixon also criticized Colbert for doubting Othman's existence during a campaign stop Sunday in Dearborn that Othman attended. It's always funny when people are like, "You're doubting my existence." Like, people say it all the time. If you say, like, if you don't affirm like someone's gender identity, say, you're doubting my existence. Like, I didn't doubt your existence. Colbert, like, literally doubted this man's existence. I told his story during a debate, Dixon said Sunday, of Othman to hundreds in Dearborn. And Stephen Colbert picks it up, and they make this whole skit about how this has never happened. That's what he said. The story never happened. That's where the Democrats are right now. You don't exist. Your stories are not important. On October 21st, Othman attended a rally for Dixon in Flat Rock in which he declared the crowd he's now a Republican, posting a video on Facebook of his remarks later that night. "My name is Kali Othman. I came all the way from Dearborn, Michigan," he said with loud applause. "I'm here along with two parents, concerned parents, against these sexually explicit books." Othman has been one of the many people in Dearborn attending protests in recent weeks against several books in the libraries of Dearborn Public Schools. The school district has removed 6 books so far, 7 of them with LGBTQ themes. So 6 books, 7 so far. Okay. "I'm a proud Muslim American who expresses my values and concerns all the time," Othman said in Flat Rock. Dearborn has been voting Democrat blue for the last decade or 2 decades, but not anymore. On behalf of myself and my family, I guarantee you for sure that my family and my friends will vote for Republican. In his Facebook post, Othman said that he has been a loyal Democrat since immigrating almost 20 years ago from Yemen. "Never once did I ever vote Republican," he wrote. "However, the situation with the sexually explicit material in the schools was for me a bridge too far. When it comes to my kids and my family, I will not budge." A few days later, during the October 25th debate between Dixon and Whitmer, Dixon described Othman's story. Dixon didn't say his name during the debate, but a spokesman for the campaign later confirmed to the Free Press it was Othman. During the Sunday rally in Dearborn, Dixon said he was from Dearborn. "I had a gentleman come up to me just a few nights ago," Dixon said during the debate, "and he said, I found content in my school library describing how to have sex to my son. I went to the Democrats and said, I cannot believe that this is in there." And he said just a few weeks ago, "Not only was I a Democrat, but I was running for office as a Democrat." He said, "Because Democrats won't stand up for our children and go back to the basics, I'm leaving the Democrat Party." The next day, October 26th, Colbert mocked Dixon as an anti-choice MAGA Republican, which he said is very unpopular in Michigan. So she's now turning to the books issue to drum up support. Yeah, being a MAGA Trump Republican is not. It can be controversial in Michigan, sure, but Trump did carry the state in 2016. Yeah, I don't think it's controversial. He just doesn't know the state. He just doesn't know the state. Colbert poked fun at Dixon's concerns and said Dixon is not the only one worried about this issue. So this is the guy she totally made up. Then he aired the clip of Dixon talking about Othman. After the clip ran, Colbert said, "Okay, fine, that happened," raising his 2 fingers extended to indicate sarcastic quotation marks. "But even if it did, if someone found the book that he didn't like in the school library, why would they go to the Democrats?" Adopting the voice of a haughty man outraged on the phone with a Democrat, Colbert continued, "That's like saying, excuse me, this is Chuck Schumer's office. I didn't like the finale of The House of Dragon. Also, this natural peanut butter is way too oily when it's in the cupboard, but it gets too hard when it's in the fridge. I'm voting Republican. Good day, sir." During the Sunday appearance in Dearborn, Dixon sought to frame the Colbert dig as an example of liberals not listening to voters. And she said, "But I'm listening to you. I want to listen to you. I want to take your concerns, and I hope that you can just trust me and I can earn your vote." See, there's a little bit more to the article, just a little bit more, but that's the gist of it. And you know what? That's really the issue. The problem with Democrats is that, or I guess just people in general with politics. I don't think it's that hard to win votes, to win elections, but you really have to listen to what people are telling you. Like, I only have like a little bit of experience of being like a campaign manager. My sister ran for chair of the Michigan Republican Party in 2019. It was very close. That's a story for another day, like the whole to get into it. But what we just found, we just listened to what people said, and we took their concerns and we're like, how can we fix these problems? And that was it. And people loved her. You just have to listen to people and try to solve their problems. Don't gaslight them and pretend they don't exist and just shove them off or something. Now, not every concern that people come to you with is going to be something that you can have a solution for. Sometimes people are just wrong. Their perception's wrong about the situation. You may have to correct them, and sometimes they're not going to believe where you're coming from. But you need to have conversations and treat everyone like they matter. Gretchen Whitmer pretending like the book thing and the explicit graphic material didn't exist, that was very off-putting. Very off-putting. So there's a reason why Tudor Dixon is like virtually tied, breaking ahead, and might win this thing on Tuesday. The independents are breaking for her. When they're deciding, they're breaking for her over a much larger margin than Whitmer, from what I've seen. And it's because they're too far gone. Now, if you're super left, super liberal, you're not going to break for Dixon, and you might be like, protect the trans kids and keep the books in there, and that's your fault as a parent if your child wanders into the library and is attacked by a gay book. That's your fault. Like, if that's where you're at, you can have your little niche and lose. But you're not understanding people. You're not listening to their concerns. You don't even want to address them. You don't want to compromise. You just want to win. You just want to submit. And when you are a public servant, that's a bad strategy. It's a terrible strategy. So again, I'm excited that Colbert brought this to the world stage. I'm so excited that people got to hear this man's story, know that he's real, that he's actually switched parties. I'm glad to hear that there's going to be a shift in Dearborn. I hope it's a huge shift. People talk, and people thought, like, for the Prop 3, like abortion stuff, which Gretchen Whitmer talks nonstop about, tweets nonstop about. That is definitely the most. It's not a good look when your most passionate issue is killing babies. And I know people don't want to frame it that way. You could say killing embryos, killing fetuses. It is killing. So it's just not a good look when you're the governor and that is your top priority. And you're like, gas is like $2.39 right now. It did go down. I don't know why it went back up. I don't know why it jumped back up, but it's up again. It's above $4. I saw it high near me, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go near my parents' house because it was cheaper there last time, and it was the same price. I was like, dang it. Like, what happened? What happened? Because it was a how much was that? 60-cent jump. Like, why did it jump 60 cents? I don't even know. But it's up there. I'm like, these Democrats are for sure losing. Like, it was going to be bad anyway, but it was like $3.59 in some parts. I'm like, okay, that's better. But now it's $4.19 again. We'll see how much it is when we're driving to the polls on Tuesday. But yeah, all they care about is this abortion issue. That it's not enough. Like, people, we talked yesterday, Black people care about crime. That is like a very important issue to people. They might care about the other stuff. I saw a great video from someone who considers himself to be politically homeless, and they said that they're going to vote. This is down in Texas, and they said that they are voting red this November. And then somebody mentioned abortion, like, oh, but you don't care about a woman's right to choose. And he said, and he's for abortion, especially like in the case of like life of the mother, rape, stuff like that. He's like, but if he said, if I were a single issue voter, he's like, this would not be my issue. So there might be a lot of people who care about this issue, but that's not going to be the thing that makes them pull the lever for you. Or it might not even be the thing that makes them get out of bed. Because you're dealing with, I heard Ben Shapiro talking about this the other day, and he was just breaking it down. He's like, 1 million abortions a year, like in the US, that's a lot. It is a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like, we burned the world. Not the world, but, the nation had all these billions in damage and all this other stuff in 2020 over police violence. And the number of Black men killed by police that year is not even like 20 unarmed Black men, right? And we kill 1 million babies a year. And I'm talking about induced, not like spontaneous abortions. That would be a miscarriage, etc. I'm talking about induced. That's a big number, but that's still like very small compared to the entire population. A lot of people don't have abortions. Now, so many people are sensitive about it because they know someone in that situation, but that's still not going to be the issue for a lot of people that motivates them to go to the polls. If the election was right after the Dobbs decision, maybe, but we're a couple months out, and there's data coming up that like, oh, these many thousands have been saved since then. That actually sounds pretty nice. So it's just not to motivate people to go vote, especially when cost of living is high, cost of food is high, cost of gas is high, and crime is bad. You're just not going to win on that issue. The very least you could do is say, I will get porn out of schools. That was the least she could do. But they're like, now we got to protect our gay pedophilia. Like, that's the hill you want to die on. That's the hill they want to die on. Again, thank you to Stephen Colbert for bringing it up. For sure. Absolutely, for sure. Thank you. Much appreciated, sir. Much appreciated. Okay, so I saw a video TikTok not too long ago of conservative ant or something. He's a big influencer from Texas. No, from Florida. He's from Florida. And he was talking about Joe Biden and just some of the stuff he was saying the other day, and how he's just going hard after people, talking about how dangerous it is for if you vote on the right and how democracy's on the line, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And one thing about, which is funny because at the same time they're saying all this stuff. They're saying that rhetoric from the right is too terrible. And and that's why Nancy Pelosi's husband got hit in the head with a hammer. Now, if I told you that in California, hey man, did you know this illegal alien broke into this man's house, and this man he's crazy. He's on like drugs and stuff, and he's like an alleged pedophile. He's just a criminal, and he broke into this man's house and hit him in the head with a hammer. Do you know you'd probably say that's California, bro. It's messed up there. But since it happened to Paul Pelosi, the answer is it's Trump's fault. That's the answer. Now, this man was deranged and he was coming for Nancy, and that's why he came for Paul. So I'm not trying to like undermine that aspect of it, but I'm just trying to say, and I talked yesterday about how there was a man, his friend and him were mugged, and someone like bashed his friend's head in. He had to go to the hospital and get stitches and stuff, and he's okay now. But there's crime and people who are illegal aliens and people who are, on drugs, just living not good lives and terrorizing people. Like he allegedly, molested kids, and he was charged for it, but the cases like fell apart, and so there wasn't justice there. It's just just sounds like California. But and the Capitol Police weren't watching the video at the time, so I know people have all these grand conspiracies or whatever. I'll go along with the story ish of what we're saying, but the details that I told you about the man are like, what? Enough. And actually, I guess the IRS had his information, but ICE didn't. And I guess it's because, how the laws are. You can't really coordinate that information. So he has an overstayed visa. He's from Canada. So he shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be here. So I saw somebody say, and maybe it was under one of my posts, that said it looks like their policies came home. I think what happened to him is awful. I wish him well. I hope he's well. But using this as some kind of narrative to be like the MAGA people, Joe Biden talked about it yesterday, incorporated to like his talk. They talk about people hitting each other with hammers. Yeah, that's awful. And so was looting and rioting in 2020. And Joe Biden couldn't even be bothered to pick up the phone to say, hey, allow Trump to come in with the National Guard to stop some of this stuff. They wanted these cities to be terrorized. They wanted it, which is crazy. And we were all just looking, hoping that we wouldn't be collateral damage, unless you were the ones actually doing the crime. So they can shove all that. They could just shove it. Here's one of the snippets from Biden's remarks about election stuff, etc.
We want Americans to vote. We want every American's voice to be heard. Now we have to move the process forward. We know that more and more ballots are cast in early voting or by mail in America. We know that many states don't start counting those ballots until after the polls close on November 8th. That means in some cases we won't know the winner of the election for a few days until a few days after the election. It takes time to count all legitimate ballots in a legal and orderly manner.
Okay, before I go on my rant about something else that he said, actually, like, about the people, I just want to say, in regard to this, take time to count the votes, I think that's ridiculous. I think that's to have a developed nation like ours and had to take all these multiple days to even have a result. That is psychotic. And they're like, well, it's because you have all this early voting. You have all these ballots and stuff. Okay. It sounds like mail-in ballots is a bad idea. Because what's the other option? Just doing everything electronically and just doing it by phone? And there's some, I did a interview with some cybersecurity experts and stuff, and they thought that was a great idea. And I'm like the youngest person in the room, and I'm just like, I don't like that idea. That makes me feel uncomfortable. And they're just like, you have all these like firms and high-tech companies that do stuff, transactions that are safe with the cyber stuff. I'm just thinking to myself, like, I don't like that. But we can't go back to like paper. I know a lot of people want to do that. Actually, we do have paper ballots. We put them in the like Scantron thing. And humans can decide and have errors in that sort of way too. So but if mail-in ballots is the problem, so many people doing it that way, then perhaps we need to go back to really just having a day and people show up at the polls and make sure you have enough polling locations and spread out in different places so you won't have these huge lines at different places. Just make more locations so people can go and they can vote and the numbers will be tabulated there and be like, oh, what do you know? Such and such won. It doesn't seem that difficult, but this should not be acceptable that we go to sleep not knowing who won the race. That doesn't seem like a healthy sign of a functioning nation to be like, oh, everybody go to sleep and maybe things will change at 3 a.m. I don't like that. I don't like that. And if continuing to have this like elections take days, the more days it takes, I would think the more expensive they would be. I don't like early voting. I don't like all this mail-in voting and stuff. I'm for election day. We have an election day, and I will stand by that. But here's Biden. He actually says if you don't accept the results of the election, it's unlawful.
As I stand here today, there are candidates running for every level of office in America, for governor, Congress, Attorney General, Secretary of State, who won't commit. They will not commit to accepting the results of elections that they're running in. This is a path to chaos in America. It's unprecedented. It's unlawful. And it's un-American.
Unlawful. Are you trying to make it unlawful? Because if it's unlawful, I can give you a list of Democrats who need to be arrested. The RNC has a video, and I wasn't going to play it because it's 10 minutes long. They're like, here's 10 minutes of Democrats just not accepting the elections. And there's Joe Biden on there too. Of course, there's Hillary Clinton. Of course, there's Stacey Abrams, which I talked about how CNN has these multiple articles from like governor, secretary of state, all the Senate, House, all this stuff from people who are election deniers. But their criteria is that not only have you, if you fail to like recognize, acknowledge, if you even questioned the election, you got listed in their election denier thing. So they have Kristi Noem, who actually attended Joe Biden's inauguration. They have Ron DeSantis. But you know who's not there? Stacey Abrams, because they're only talking about the 2020 election. So Stacey Abrams, the person who everyone elevated as a legitimate person who actually won Georgia's election, didn't make the cut. So another thing is that these Democrats, in some circumstances, they paid for them to be the nominee. They paid for them to be the nominee. They would cut ads like John Gibbs, cut ads that were supposed to be attack ads, but they were actually nice ads. So people would be like, you know what, John Gibbs, yeah, I'm gonna go vote for him, because they didn't want Peter Meyer to be the nominee. Even though they in dark corners be like, you're one of the good ones, Meyer, because he voted for Trump's impeachment. But they didn't want him to be the nominee because they thought it'd be easier to get rid of John Gibbs. So if you think someone is actually an actual threat to democracy, you don't make them the nominee. You don't make them the nominee. You don't do that. So all this stuff is just rhetoric. But if you're willing to divide the country like this is what's so crazy. The way that they talk about the opposition, the way they fan the flames of hatred, whether it's this or they talk about racial stuff and Biden saying stuff like Jim Crow 2.0, etc., talking about how racist and awful Republicans are. Stacey Abrams saying that, yeah, I don't have the sheriffs backing me because they want to just terrorize black people, and I'm paraphrasing. But when you say stuff like that, and you build narratives like the cops are just hunting and killing black people, and when you do stuff like that, and you're willing to tear the nation apart, and it seems like you're willing to lie and do just about anything to win, that's when people say and question, well, if you think I'm so awful, if you think I'm so evil, why wouldn't you rig an election to save democracy if that's how you feel? I hear people ask that all the time. If you're willing to do something this evil, if you think I'm so evil and you're willing to do things to me that are so awful, willing to let things so awful happen, how can I not believe that you'd be willing to rig an election? Who's it? Seth, the atheist guy, so-called intellectual, Seth Harris, maybe? That doesn't sound right. Who said that Hunter Biden could have had corpses of dead children in his like laptop or basement? He still like didn't care about the laptop. So if people are that crazy, then why did you think they would rig the election? And I'm not saying they did, though there have been a couple people busted. I heard about a story today where somebody got busted, an elected official got busted for fraud. You had somebody in Southfield who had to resign. It does happen. But people question that. So we have multiple threats to our democracy, which we're not actually a democracy, and just pretending the people you don't like who want to say the thing about the election results, which I don't remember people asking like, hey, are you gonna accept the results of the election until like 2016? But what's funny about 2016 when they start asking Trump, those questions, is that I can't remember if there was a second debate or the third debate. Perhaps it was a third one. Whatever debate, Hillary Clinton was like in a white outfit. And so she was on the plane or whatever. Um, and Dana Bash from CNN asked Hillary Clinton, will you accept the results of the election? She asked Hillary Clinton that, and she just kind of laughed. And she's like, I was horrified by Trump tonight. She totally ignored Dana Bash's question, and she refused to say that she would accept the results of the election. She refused to do that. Now, I don't know if she had any question in her mind whether she was going to accept the results of the election. I heard Obama was like, "You got to do it." I don't know if she hesitated at all, but I do know that I was through the moon excited 2016, and I was at the office watching, the results in because I worked in the Michigan Republican Party. I was in my office watching the results alone, basically. They were like a lot of other people were upstairs or I think in the basement or whatever, and so I was just excited. I didn't want to tweet anything like, "Oh, Trump's going to win," blah blah blah. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to be wrong. So, but when Trump won, it was like troll, 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 like everywhere. I was having a field day. I even took a picture of me like kind of sleeping, like I'm so tired from winning, you know. And so we were waiting for her to give her concession speech, and then do you remember John Podesta coming out being like, "Okay, well, we're just gonna see until the results or whatever." And so we were ticked off. We were ticked off, and our bosses would be like, "Go home, go home. We don't know what we have to do in the morning. Go home because you got to come back." So I went home. It was not easy going to sleep, even though it was like really late. But she didn't just come right out and do. Now, of course, she gave her concession speech the next day, but then she went around saying that she did everything right, which everyone knows that's wrong, but she's just trying to save face because a lot of people gave her money. She did everything wrong, did so many things wrong. She was not a great candidate. She did not run a great campaign, but she decided to go with Russia collusion and said the election was stolen, basically. So, which, by the way, this narrative that people pushed that our president for 4 years was installed by the Kremlin, how is that not a threat to democracy? Trying to undermine the faith in our democratically elected leader. It's not a democracy, but we'll say that. How is that not a threat? These people are full of crap. Absolutely full of crap. So if refusing to accept the results of election is unlawful, then Hillary Clinton needs to be in jail. If that's the case. A lot of Democrats need to be in jail. You can go back to 2000 in Bush. My sister remembered there was if you guys remember Scary Movie all the way back, there was like a scene or something when they were like looking for something and they're like, "What's in here?" And it was like a skeleton and then a box of like ballots from Florida. People were still say to this day that George Bush didn't win that election. And there was all the drama. People talk about Florida for being such a messed up place. Like, "Oh, y'all ruining it. That's always Florida ruining elections." But now Florida's pretty blue, so we don't got to really worry about that so much. So Biden's full of it. But I'm going to say, like, here's my hot take. The fact that there's all these people who don't believe that he was elected legitimately, which, by the way, I heard like Democrats say that too, because they just can't wrap their minds around Biden getting more votes than Obama. So they think there's something fishy. Now, obviously, it was unprecedented the way that we had the mail-in ballot, so that really explains the volume, right? But the people who really believe that or whatever, I think that's a bigger threat to the Republicans than it has been to like the fate of democracy. Because when we had the runoff in Georgia and there are people on the ground trying to get people to go vote, do you know what people said on the right? They said they didn't feel like their vote mattered, like it was useless. Now the Democrats were all energized, and then they also thought that they were going to get $2,000 checks, which they didn't get $2,000 checks. They gave them like $1,400 checks, and they're like, "Well, 600 was a down payment." It's like, Trump gave them that $600 though. So how can Trump give a down payment on a promise that Biden made? That's crazy. So if I was Herschel Walker, I'd be like, this man still owe you $600, FYI. If I was Walker, I would bring that up. But it made people feel disenfranchised, like their vote doesn't matter. And for a long time, that was like a narrative that people had to fight back with on the right, because they just felt like their vote didn't matter because they genuinely felt like the election was stolen. So if anything, I think people who have that narrative, it's hurt more people on the right than like the overall health of the nation, to be frank with you. And it's also been like a huge political wedge. Like if you don't believe, like the press would ask Republicans, do you believe that Trump won the election? And the reason why they ask that is not because they legitimately want to know what they think, not because they legitimately think that they're a threat if they don't think that Biden legitimately won. They would ask them that question because other MAGA Republicans believe that Biden isn't the legitimately elected president. And if you don't agree with those people, then those people think that you're some kind of sellout and they don't want to support you. So the press would ask that question to make your base turn against you. It was wild. So if anything, this belief that Biden did or didn't win the election has done more damage to the right, not to the overall democracy. And you can bring, what about happened on January 6th? What happened on January 6th was awful. The portion where people were rioting, all this stuff, terrible. I said it like immediately when it happened. No argument from me. Keeping people basically as political prisoners later, I think that was how they traced some people down. And Brian Kelly, for example, the FBI came in his house, raided in front of his little kids. I think stuff like that, Gestapo kind of stuff, is a bigger threat to our democracy. So the government will do that. The government will do that with pro-life activists. How they're weaponizing the DOJ, that's a bigger threat to democracy. Coercing like Twitter and these social media sites and silencing dissent, that's way bigger threat to democracy. Way bigger threat. Another example, like the Turdor Dixon is, she could possibly win on Tuesday to be the governor. But during the Macomb debate with her and Ryan Kelly and the other candidates, Garrett Soldano, Kevin Ranke, and Ralph Reinbart. I'm not sure that's how you say his last name, but he's a pastor. So there was a question that came up, and they said, well, who believes that Trump won the election? And Turdor Dixon had an answer that was, she explained, like, hey, the New York Times, Time Magazine did an article about how the shadow campaign that saved the election, and she talked about inappropriate things that our Secretary of State did, and she signature verification, all that other like technical, provable things that aren't up for debate, and she framed it like, hey, obviously shady stuff happened, and that wasn't a good enough answer for some people. That's how I would have answered the question, but then like Pastor Ralph was like, okay, who believes he got more votes though? So he wanted to frame it that way. And the reason why he wanted to frame it that way is because they believe that answer was going to determine like who's like the reals and who's are like the fakes. So when I say like the Democrats and Biden, like they're a threat to democracy, blah, 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 it has been a way bigger thorn in the side for the actual right than what they're pretending, like how it's going to affect the nation. If anything, they should be glad and thankful that this has caused such division for the past 2 years. And that they had, such the optics of January 6th. They were probably horrified, but obviously they have enjoyed it. Making their prime time committee and all that other stuff. they have milked this cow, resurrected the cow. The cow had to go in the grave, and they used its ashes, and they're just drinking powdered milk dust with the January 6th stuff. So they're full of it again, absolutely full of it. But last thing I want to mention, just very quickly, I saw something last night that upset me. So you guys remember Disney Hercules? Again, I'm not into Disney much anymore. I think they've done some deeply evil things as a company. So I have personally decided to like just not watch or be like it's very hard to not watch anything Disney because they own so much like corporately. There's like a handful of corporations that basically own everything. But Disney Plus, Marvel movies, I haven't seen any of them for over a year. Last thing I watched like on Disney Plus was WandaVision, which was okay. Wasn't like as good as everyone was saying. So anyway, they're making a live action Hercules film, like the Hercules cartoon. Now, I really like a lot of animated Disney films. Hercules is one of my favorites. It's up there. It's there's so many really great classics. It's hard to say what's your favorite, but Hercules is up there. Hercules is up there. It could be the one. I don't know. I have to duke it out. I love Hercules, and I think the soundtrack is pretty much flawless. My least favorite song in the movie is probably "A Star Is Born," and even that song is great. So, the Russo confirm Disney's live action Hercules will be a modern musical inspired by TikTok. I don't know what that means. First of all, so the Disney live action stuff has been so different, and I've accepted that they're different and not the same thing, and that's whatever. But this seems like such a boneheaded idea, and a lot of people are acting negatively toward it. They said they want to be more experimental, like they felt that Hercules was. Um, like I Can Go the Distance is such a great song. The muses are so great. And all of them together, it's just like gospel. It's gospel. Like that's the style. To not do it like that. The movie's not that old. I mean, it's old, I guess, but it's not like some of the Disney films are very old. So why? I just don't understand. It's such a bad idea. There were so many people like last night talking about it. I know a lot of people don't like the actor who played Hades. Gosh, I can't think of his. Uh, can't think of his name. James Woods. So a lot of people don't like James Woods because he's on the right, because he's conservative, and he gets banned from like Twitter all the time. But he's like fantastic, and he could like literally be in the movie if that's what they wanted to do. Um, I People are like Danny DeVito better be Phil. Like, um, this just sounds like an awful idea, and I could go up more. I could talk more about it, but I'll leave it as is. I'm so glad that I am emotionally detached to Disney. I know I don't sound emotionally detached, but my heart's not going to break from not seeing this film. But I just question everything, these decisions. So I just wanted to bring it up because it bothered me. And it'll bother my sisters, bother a lot of people. So I hope you bothered too. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com and check out different merchandise that we have at Black Tea News, like the pro-choice men are sus, Sons for Suspect, the Roe and Casey aborted, life wins. We got the Make Crack Whack Again Trump 2024, which I made because of the stories with the Biden administration giving out crack pipes. So You guys can check out all kinds of stuff that we have at Black Teen News. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation to blackteennews.com/donate. I very much appreciate that. If you can do that, it costs a stream, costs to run my website, costs to travel, costs to do all kinds of different things. There's equipment that I would like to get. I would just really appreciate it if you guys could help with that overhead if you can. Otherwise, thank you for liking, for sharing, subscribing, tagging other people, telling them to check out Black Teen News. Very much appreciate it. Make sure you guys are sharing my videos, that you're checking out my different articles. Again, I want to thank Bride Mission Pack. I'm in their studio. If I said something that triggered you, nobody cares. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.